Over the ditch, back for another week and back for another week. Matty Markham, hello to you, Matt.
G'day, Paul. How are you? Nice to be with you again.
Very good, mate. We've got a fair bit to cover off on, that's for sure. Good Fields Friday night coming up. Some good racing last weekend, but we might play at home, if you like, for you to start the show off. And Methven, big meeting at Methven the other day, but culminating in from the outside, looked a pretty emotional win in the Methven Cup for Sarah O'Reilly, culminating on a very big weekend for her.
Yeah, massive. Look, Sarah's a Mid-Canterbury girl, of course. Methven, part of the Mid-Canterbury landscape. Methven and Ashburton are the two harness tracks in Mid-Canterbury. And gee, I can remember Sarah running around when she was knee-high to a grasshopper with her dad and her mum at workouts, trials, race meetings. And, you know, to sit back and watch what she's achieved in harness racing over the past 4 or 5 years. What are we now? 4 times New Zealand Junior Drivers Champion. Of course, she was an Australasian Young Drivers Champion. But above all that, she's always wanted to win the Methven Cup. And I think that's what brought among that emotion on Sunday as she come back the head of the field with American Me. She's not someone who generally shows outward displays of emotion, Sarah, unless she's been cheeky and throwing a bit of a verbal barb at you. But she was clearly quite moved by the moment. And I think it probably took quite a lot of people by surprise, because it's not really something we've seen from her, given all the success that she's had over the years. But it was a pretty special moment, because I know that the majority of her family were there at Methven on Sunday watching it, and they were all at the birdcage clapping her as she come back in. So pretty special. And look, the way she's going, she's going to end up being one of the best females to have sat in a sulky in New Zealand by the time her career's finished. She's third on the overall premiership at the moment, behind Blair Orange and John Dunn. So she's low flying. I think it's 59 wins. And that was the real heartfelt moment of the weekend, I think. And of course, it culminated with her winning that 4th New Zealand Junior Drivers Championship. She became only the second person to do it 4 times. Alongside Maurice McKendry, who, would you believe, she's actually related to?
Well, yeah, I don't doubt who's related to who over there, don't you? I know how to play it right. Well, we'll stick onto the points, if you like. We'll stay on with the junior drivers. I've got to say a huge well done to Zev Meredith, a man who I did get to meet last year for the first time. I think it was at Kaikoura. Gemma Thornley, Carter Dalgetty. Well done to all of them for taking part in it. Kieran Tomlinson, unfortunately running last, but great ambassador for the industry, full stop as well.
Yeah, they're a fantastic bunch of juniors, and you know, the next generation, they're the ones, you know, in 10 years' time that are going to pick up the mantle and be the leading drivers and horse people in the industry. And it was really good competitive racing across the 3 days. You know, it sort of turned in Sarah's way at Invercargill on Friday. She won the first 2 heats, then she galloped away in the third, but enough to be in front. And the drive she had on Sunday probably wasn't one that you thought she was going to finish high up on, but she managed to get into a beautiful spot, and it's run 4th, which was just enough. Could have been a different story if Zev had got half a gap at the top of the straight. He went to the line very hard held, and I've probably got no doubt, knowing the speed that horse has got, that he probably would have won it. So he'll be back. He'll come back in time, and he'll get his chance.
No, absolutely. He's a good young man. We can talk forever, you and I, both of us. We found that out last week. We'll try and keep it going a little bit, but we're not going to rush through these, because there's some great results. The Methven Cup, and you can just see Sarah's just there now in the picture, just getting off the fence. It was a cool drive early with American Me for Brent and Timmy White. Just had it in the right spot at the right time, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. You know, the biggest problem with it in its last few starts has actually been getting away from a stand. So she sort of said, you know, she wanted to get to the markers if she could, and of course her stablemate Got You Covered came round and took the lead, which put her 3 fence, which is not a bad spot to be at Methven. And then when Blair come knocking with Franco Windy, that did eventuate. But her drive off the back straight and around the bend here, you could tell she had just an armful of horse in front of her. And once she got clear, it was pretty much a result of how much was she going to win by, because, you know, she looked really confident at the top of the straight, as you can see there, and it just cleared away. Some big runs in behind. Jimmy James Maguire, big run from him. He's only won 4 races, and he's run second in a Methven Cup. And One Change was the one that probably caught the eye the most. It was last at the 400 metre mark. That's it flying through in the Trevor Casey colours, and it's just going to get up in front of Bark and finish third. But it was a one-horse race in the run to the line, Paul.
No, absolutely. Smithy Serra was quite good for Corbin. I think Corbin won it last year. Did he win the Methven Cup last year?
Yeah, he did, defending champions with the same horse, yeah.
Yeah. American Me, I love the sustained look she had over the top of the straight. She said, I think I've got this, but then she pulls the earplugs and says, I'm making sure of it, and went from there. Franco Indy, disappointing?
Yeah, I know. I was there when Blair pulled up after the line, and he just didn't really have an explanation. He said, awful was pretty much, I think, the word that he might have used. Look, it was a testing track, but he did cop some pressure down the back straight when Colin DeFilippi come knocking, but I probably would have thought he would have boxed on a bit better than that, considering the way he'd gone in his first two runs. Maybe it was the grass at the end of the day, but you'd probably just put a line through that, he'll bounce back. Just
on the grass for the Australian listeners, I've been to both tracks, Banks Peninsula and Methven. Methven seems, to the uninitiated anyway, a longer grass and possibly a softer surface even when it's firm going. Banks Peninsula, they're not that far from each other, probably an hour as a crow flies, but Banks seems a little bit more of an Australian grass, I suppose, whereas Methven does seem to have a little bit more give in it.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, we'd had a heap of rain on Saturday before that meeting on Sunday here, so I thought it held up pretty well. Look, you're going to get your varying lengths of grass as the season progresses. I know Methven like to start their track a bit longer in the season, but they've also been going under what's been a probably 4 to 5 year remedial work on their track after a bit of damage to it and things like that. They're both very, very good grass track racing surfaces, and Canterbury's lucky to have them both, and they both serve a purpose. But the Methven track obviously used to have about a 500 metre long straight, and they took that out many, many years ago. And it's probably just played into favour for those on the speed. It's become a bit harder for horses to come from well back in the field, whereas at Mott you're probably still a chance at the top of the straight because they've got that slightly longer straight, but that's also indicative of the times that they run up front. Now, if they run a 28 quarter off the back, it just becomes nigh on impossible for horses to make up ground, especially when you're dealing with a slightly rain-affected track. So the run of the horses like One Change, which was completely against the track bias on Sunday, was very, very good.
Do you back him next start as a punter? Just, again, trying to educate people as much as anything. Do you back him next start no matter what surface it's on, or do you wait for him on the grass?
Look, I'd probably wait for him on the grass. He's burnt me a couple of times One Change, so I'm always a bit hesitant to go off the back of one good run. But Amber Hoffman does a good job, and her team generally races well on the grass. Obviously, being beach trained, it's about as similar as you can get. So he'll be an interesting horse to watch, because I know that Mark Purdon had a big rap on him when he was a young horse. He's obviously at the beach for some joint and leg issues, but at his best, he's very, very good, and he's very, very fast.
I didn't get a lot of other highlights from Methven, but you were there. You tied up with the club, of course, and that. What were this? Was there some other highlights out of the meeting?
Yeah, Craig Thornley combined with Stephen McRae to win what they have as I think it's a $20,000 now, Fillies and Mares Trot, which always attracts a good field. Craig was on board Galway Girl, who has got a serious motor. There's no doubt about that. It's got a few gate issues. Likes to switch into a pace every now and then. I was standing about 200 metres around, no, not even that, 100 metres around past the winning post on Sunday, and it had trotted like a stag the whole way down the straight, and it got just after the winning line after it had won the race and switched into a pace. So they've got a bit of work to do to keep that thing down trotting, but it's got a serious motor. It was probably the big highlight of the day outside of the Methven Cup, and of course Sarah winning that junior drivers championship.
I think he's in. She's in. Sorry, later. She's in on Friday night when we'll do a bit of a preview at the end of the day, end of the show as well, going forward. And she's a lovely filly by Majestic Sun. It's interesting again over here. A lot of the time when they pace, we try to get the best tracks, best surfaces, if you like. They're racing it on grass, and obviously it works. So it's just a different way of looking at things, if you like, from an Australian point of view, going through. I'm just trying to get this horse's record up: 6 wins from 22 starts and $60,000 in stakes. So it's a good horse for people to be able to follow going forward, we're going to go to Addington, I think is how I actually work. No, we're not. No, we're not at all. We're going to go down to Southland. Tommy Baggery, what a team of horses he has got going forward. This little mare here, Walking on Sunshine, this was an emphatic win for a start, wasn't it? It beat a nice field of trotters. The two second and third fillies both go terrific, but she won very arrogantly.
Yeah, she's a little professional. We saw the best of her up at Auckland earlier in the year when she was taking on some pretty nice horses, including a horse that we'll talk about a little bit later on, and Love Me Too from the Rogers and Ferguson barn. But just a little professional, gets out and does the job. She was surprisingly beaten last start at Addington. I think it shocked a lot of people because they thought she'd probably just line up and win, but she's got that winning groove back there, and you're right, they are two very nice fillies in Araha Kenny and Crackling chasing her home. So she's probably got a lot ahead of her as we work towards the end of the year, trotting Oaks and things like that on Grand Prix Day. So, yeah, she's a really nice horse. And you're right, Tom's got a really nice team at the moment. Of course, Harold Smith is one of his other trotters, is doing a very good job. He goes around on Friday night as well.
How many would Tommy train?
Oh, I think he'd be around the 20 mark, including the younger ones that he's bringing through. And tell you, his horses always look sensational when they walk out on the track, and they're always fit. And he's got a couple of nice paces around him at the moment as well. The Craig is a horse that he's had that's won a couple pretty quickly, and always can back Tom's horses with a bit of confidence. Of course, his dad was the man behind the Mighty Quinn early on in his career, Peter Baggery, and they've had some beautiful horses over the year. Of course, Better's Heart, Peter had as well, who come over and raced in a Miracle Mile before she went to America, I think. So there's plenty of family history there, of course, closely related to the Dunns as well. So continue down that family line that we were talking about before, Paul. Everyone's related to everyone. So, you can always back Tom's horses with a bit of confidence.
He presents his horses always really well, Tommy. He presents himself very well as well. I like the way he dresses. He's a dapper man, and it's one thing we lack here in Australia. Isolate was in that race. Unfortunately, she had no intentions of trotting early. She was just on the naughty books, and that she's another trotter, though, to keep a good eye on. There's good depth in the 3-year-old fillies over there in New Zealand right at the minute.
Our juvenile trotting ranks, be it 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds, colts and geldings or fillies, are probably getting to the point where they might be as strong as I think I can ever remember seeing them. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of really, really nice horses who are going to win a lot of races, which is really encouraging. And the change in seasons has probably helped that a bit. I think they're coming through and they're a bit more solidly built. They've had a little bit more time to develop, and we're going to see the benefits of that over the coming years as we adjust to that seasonal change. And the 2-year-old trotting ranks and the 3-year-old trotting ranks are incredibly strong. Yeah,
and we have them over here as well. It's an interesting dynamic. All of a sudden, these fillies seem to be stronger. You take the 3-year-old fillies here in Australia, rocking with Attitude and the likes. She's won 2 derbies, and already going forward. I don't know what it is, but it's good. It's actually really exciting, and we'll touch on something. We'll just stay quickly on to Invercargill last Friday. It was Craig Ferguson drove 2 winners, trained a winner, but he didn't drive it. He drives for other people. He's a terrific driver. Is there a rule with Craig that he doesn't drive his own horses, or what am I missing?
Well, he does drive the odd one of his own, but he does tend to share the driving round a bit of it. Street Art, his horse that won at Invercargill on Friday, is a very nice horse, and Nathan Williamson's driven it the whole way through. And it's a little bit like Mark Hurrell with a horse that we're going to talk about soon, I imagine, in Wagstar. Mark helps Craig out. They've formed a good combination, but Craig's a very, very good driver in his own right, and I know he competed in New Zealand Junior Driver Championships, but whether he's getting to that point where he's more focused on his training and one of those trainers that's happy, putting on someone without that extra pressure of being trainer and driver. And I know he does get in the cart on his own a few, but he does jump on for quite a few other trainers too. So, it's a funny way it works, but he seems happy with it and everyone else seems happy with it too.
It was good to see the Mako Lodge boys. They got a double. They were pretty happy. I did notice, I forgot his name, Rambo. Do they call him Rambo?
Bronson.
Bronson, that's it. Sorry, close to Rambo. He'll be happy. He'll be happy with that. I think he said that Macca had to drive home. Johnny Turner does some great stuff down there. If you're watching this and you don't follow Johnny Turner stuff, you got to watch it. It was a cool interview, and he gave Macca the chip that he had to drive home. But it looked a good day of racing, albeit being a lesser meeting. I think most of the horses are probably up near Canterbury, Christchurch, ready for some of the bigger races, the better horses. But they're still quality racing. I think they've got a good card again. Friday again, I think it is this week.
Yeah, Wyndham this week. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a good card. Nothing else to add from that meeting?
No, that horse of Bronson's is a nice horse, Yosemite, that won the maiden trot. Looks like it's going to go on and do a nice job. And the other McIntyre runner, Wayward Angel, well, she looked immoral and she delivered as you would expect. But Brent's starting to form a pretty handy strike rate with his team. He doesn't take them to the races unless they can win, and more often than not, they're doing exactly that. Yeah,
no, absolutely. They turn them out terrific, and hard workers. They be full on now, breeding and everything else like that, and still take the time out to go to the races. So I think well done to those. Talking about those 3-year-old fillies walking on sunshine and a couple of these other ones, with the announcement of the trot slots, we'll get on to the rest of the rating and that. But things are so buoyant all of a sudden now in New Zealand. I did an in-depth conversation, if you like, with the Talking Trotters with Dave Branch the other night. But just the depth in the trotties over there, it's just a nice time, because some of these 3-year-old fillies, any of those ones, barrier draws are going to go for 3-year-olds. Fillies will get preferential draw. Oh, it's exciting, this trot slots race. I mean, a lot of the big names were mentioned. I reckon there'll be a lot of people looking at these lesser horses, if you like. When I say lesser, I mean horses that don't have the same high profile just yet, and try and get them in onto an easy barrier draw, if you like, and add a bit of excitement to what's going to be a huge race and a huge race meeting for the Grins. I think it's in April, mid-April.
Yeah. Anything that's going to boost the square gating side of the game is a positive. Probably for too long it's been looked on as the poor cousin of pacing, and there's still a lot of scope for the good trotter, and I think that slots race, and kudos to David Branch and the team at Cambridge. I know it's been in the pipeline for a while, and it nearly was going to happen, last year, or this year, sorry, but they decided to just sit and wait on it for a little bit. But we could get some kind of field for that race, something like we haven't seen in Australasia for a very, very long time. And I like the idea of this Australian-New Zealand rivalry being rebuilt again. We used to have it, and you'd see the likes of La Cucaracha coming over here and dominating, and, go right back to when I was a kid and you had Lyle Creek and Take a Moment going over and doing the business. So I think it's really good, and we're in an exciting space because you're right, we have got some serious trotters, Muscle Mountain, Bolt for Brilliance is the up-and-comers, Artie by the Hill, Loving the Port, of course, a Group 1 winner, and then, of course, the plethora of trotters that you've got over there at the moment, Queen Elidas and the Just Believes and the like. It's an exciting time, and I can't wait to build in to this trotting race, because I think it's going to be as big and exciting as what the pacing version is going to be. I think
it possibly could be a little bit better because of the unknown depth, because there'll be horses like the Locomotive over there, a horse like Rockin' with Attitude, even a mare like Glamour Stride. If you actually look at her record, you'll say, why would he say that? But it's got huge gate speed. It's going to be a 4-year-old mare next year. It's got massive gate speed, has a good motor. It only keeps getting pipped. If it takes that next step for Chris Lane, great conditioner of a trotter, there's that change up, if you like, or something different. With the paces, you don't probably get that luxury. Just Believe, Queen Elida, there's some talk they're going to the Elite Lop. So everyone would say, well, we can't beat those horses. They might not even go yet. Muscle Mountain's got to get around Cambridge. I don't know if he's been there too many times. So there's so many variables to happen in that race.
Yeah, there is. And, of course, the interesting thing that we now sit and wait for is who's going to take these slots.
Yeah.
Who's going to, and then the fun really starts as they start sort of, battling it out to try and get their names on one. Ian Dobson, of course, who owns Muscle Mountain, has a slot in the pacing race, the Cullen Racing brand, and hard to see why he wouldn't want to get his hands on a trotting slot and then just put his horse straight into it. And then you've got, Bolt for Brilliance, and there's some really nice trotters going around, and some really key figures in the trotting side of things that I think will want to be involved. you start getting some of those big players involved and get them, bantering for slots and horses. It's gonna make for a really interesting lead up.
Yeah, no, it is indeed. I could go on forever. Like horses like London to a Brick. He's just a jet. He's only a 3-year-old. He'll be a 4-year-old for next year. It's super exciting, and I think it means that we're going to keep a real good eye on the trotters going forward. So, but yeah, like we said, Walking on Sunshine. She ran second in a Derby too. Love Me Too. He's another horse we didn't mention. He's over here in Australia right now for Dylan Ferguson and Rodgie, getting ready for the Derbies. Hometown horse, doesn't have to travel. There are so many we could actually mention, so it's going to be exciting. We'll keep going now onto some of these results. Addington the other night, to be honest, the whole weekend of New Zealand harness racing, you can tell the good races are coming because, man, it was exciting. It didn't matter where you looked. For mine, both Addington and Auckland, the racing was so exciting, so competitive, even in some of the lesser races. You can tell the good racing's not far away and people want to play a big part in it. We'll go through some of the ones that we did find. We see you gave a little tease there before about Wagstar. What a win this horse was. What an arrogant drive by Mark Herrell, and I don't mean that in a nasty way. I loved it. It was just awesome to watch. It was almost an Australian drive, if you like, the way he drove it. But didn't really even look over his shoulder, Matt. He just knew what he had underneath him and just turned him loose.
Yeah, and what you see from this clip, obviously, if you haven't seen it before, is at about this point a lap ago, he was last.
Yeah.
And he's rushed around and found the front, and I think he's gone 28, 28, 28, and just left them with their tongues hanging out. And I mean, there's some nice horses in behind him here. Point Break is a very, very nice horse of Brendan Hill's. Bob Butt's horse, Pandire, running home, nice horse as well. Major Talk was a very good winner for Mark Jones the week before. This thing's just in a world of its own. It's had 5 starts, 3 wins now. It's run 2 seconds in its other 2 races, and they were both behind the very, very good Ahoka Connor, who we haven't seen this campaign yet. But, gee, he looks like he's strengthened right up Wagstar. And just a continue of this procession of horses that Craig Ferguson's producing at the moment. He's got horses like Cormac Leo, who we haven't seen. Glaucus was very impressive in its first campaign. I was having a look at Craig's stats. And this season he's had 60 horses to the races, or 60 starters, 24 wins and 20 placings. So he's 2 and 3, running top 3, and there's 4th and 5th there as well. So it's an incredible strike rate. And we talked about Street Up before, who's won 3 or 4 in a row. He's become a punter's best friend because he lines horses up, particularly down in Southland, and they're $1.90, $2, but most of the time they're delivering. I know they had a big rap on Wagstar last campaign, and he looks like he's strengthened up, and he just adds another string to this build-up we've got towards the New Zealand Derby here this year, where you've got, Don't Stop Dreaming, Merlin, Older Meteor, Ahoka Connor still to come in, but you've got a horse like him from Southland coming up. It's exciting. It's really exciting, and he's right in the conversation there, I think.
To me, it looked like Mark was driving that horse as a trainer. Almost knowing they've got bigger fish to fry. So instead of just letting him coast to the line, and you could see in that footage that I had there, even after the line, he was just making him just keep going, know that it is going to get tougher. It was a conditioning run. It was cool. It was great to watch. It was a really nice drive. The other horse we've got, obviously there's a couple of highlights we definitely want to come on, but one of the little smoky ones, if you like, as well, was Rakiro Rocket. This horse having its first start, Gavin Smith in the cart for Tom Bamford. Man, this was impressive. Another horse that did a power of work early. And then when Gavin said go, didn't his horse let down?
Yeah, it did. And it had done the same at the trials too, and that's why the money was about for it on debut. Bob Butt's horse running second's a nice horse, but it's sort of was chasing a shadow here because once this thing got clear, it just wanted to keep on trucking. And Tom Bamford's doing a good job. He stepped in. He's taken over training the Rick Hero team for Ronnie Dorr, and they've got some nice horses to play with in the coming months. And this is one of them. He's going to go on and do a really good job. Well bred too. He's out of Motto Pocket of Jewels, so that's a good family. I think Motto Premier might be from that family, who did a good job here in New Zealand before I think he come over to your side of the Tasman. So yeah, and nice to see Gav Smith driving winners. Gav's probably one of our most underrated drivers at the moment here in New Zealand. He gets in the cart behind a good one, and he still knows how to steer him to success. We see it week in, week out. So yeah, exciting times ahead for that one.
Very confident early too. Just never
Yeah.
never even looked like going backwards. Just said, until I get to the top, I'm just going to keep going forward, but not aggressive. Just kept moseying forward and making sure he got there. We've got 3 races to highlight for Olivia Thornley. I'm only going to show two of the videos, but Waterfront for a start. It's one that I don't have the videos for. Taking out the Dunstan Horse Feeds Sire Stakes for the 2-year-old fillies. Good field, nice finish, really classy finish. A 2-year-old fillies, sorry. And this would be a good form line going forward.
Yeah, Willie. Look, it was an impressive and, again, professional kind of win, sprinted up the lane good. Thought the stablemate Madrid was really good because it's obviously come off the second line and had to do a bit of work. But everything was falling into place for Olivia on Friday night, with the boss and Blair both sitting on the sideline. She got the call up to drive some of these horses, and she certainly repaid the faith. And that was a really, really heady drive from a talented young horsewoman. And I think there's a really even mix to this 2-year-old fillies mix over here in New Zealand at the moment. We've got some nice ones to come down this week and have a bit of a crack. So looking forward to seeing how that all pans out. And barrier draws are probably going to be the big key thing. One horse that did catch my eye out of that race, a horse called Post Painter, trained by Robbie Close. If you go back and have a look at its run, it's come from well back and it has stormed home. Whether it continues to race in this age group and, take on some of these big races, or it drops back to something a bit lower, it's going to win a race at short notice. So put that one on the black book.
Post Painter. I wish I had had the video now to be able to watch it. And there was no reason I didn't. I just thought, well, we've got a few to highlight from Olivia because she had a great night. I don't know if she's driven more than 3 winners before, but I don't think she would have driven 3 more important winners, if you like, going forward, and to stamp herself. I think she's only driven just over 50. That'll be about 53 winners I think she's driven now, because she brought up her 50th the other day. One that I did highlight was the boys, 2-year-old paces, and I think again another form race with the unbeaten Vessam now going down, but he was nothing to be ashamed about. Chase a Dream for Olivia gets the chockies here. The second horse, I'll get your point for what you think about him in a minute, but Mickey's Courage for Robert Dunn. Benny Hill's horse again, great field. Really classy finish and some really nice horses going forward.
There are, you're right. And, I don't read probably too much into Vessam's performance. He probably looked a little bit disappointing, but he did work hard early. This is a good crop, again, and I know I keep saying it about the crops we've got over here, but Hadron Collider could be an exceptional horse, but he wants to beat himself every time he gets into the straight, and he wants to lay in on one rein. And you'll see it here when John Dunn pulls him out at the top of the straight. He just locks on and wants to lean all over the horse inside him.
So he's the first horse 3 deep anyone wanted to watch, and he done this last start in a different position. Yeah. You can just see the frustration on Johnny just here. He's just like, oh, you're joking.
Yeah, and he's nearly shifted in almost an entire cartwidth there, and he's still trying to lay all over Vessam's wheel there. To me, outside of the winner, the run of the race was Renegade. Yep. Ricky May and Brendan Hill storming home. It was last. Obviously, it won on debut a few weeks ago. I had a good chat to Ricky about it last week, and Ricky's got a pretty high opinion of it. And I think you'll see the typical Ricky approach. He's not going to knock it round. He's going to, he's going to look after the horse and let it develop and learn a little bit. But when he wants to press the button, he's got some serious horsepower in front of him, and I think he could be one of the horses that ends up winning a big race at some stage on what I've seen so far. So, Chase the Dream, he was excellent. He was so good the week before as well. He's got real speed, so good even crop, and again, probably going to come down to luck and running and barrier draws in some of these big races.
I think Vessam's backing up this week. I do know that the barrier gods haven't been kind to Mark and Nathan going forward for that meeting, but we'll worry about that towards the end of the show. But I thought it was very, very good. Even Harrison John was okay because he got a bit hampered halfway up that straight. But that Renegade, I saw his first win. He just looked raw, just untapped speed, if you like, and it was just brilliant to watch. As is this mare. Now, I've been fortunate enough to see this mare a couple of times in person, and I keep saying she's nothing flash to look at. She's not bad. She's nothing flash to look at. But Millwood Nike now, 15 from 15. She's the real deal. And, gee, she's a bonny wee mare, the way she races, isn't she?
Yeah, well, you would think looking at this point here that she wasn't going to win. That's her following Sweet Coco into the race, the leader. And she hit a bit of a flat patch, but then once they straightened up and Olivia sort of asked her to run, she's actually ended up doing it really, really easily. I know we talked about her last week. she could be one of the best female juvenile pacers I think I've ever seen. She's just got everything. She's just the way she covers the ground and how effortlessly she makes it. And I thought it was a really heady drive from Olivia because, there's been a lot said in media over on this side of the Tasman about how she could potentially push, some record-breaking, unbeaten winning streaks and that. And there's a little bit of pressure that goes with that. You're driving a horse fresh up for a new campaign. Yes, it's a Purdon runner, so it's going to be ready, but you're racing some horses that have been up racing for 2 or 3 months that are very handy fillies. But, I thought Olivia did everything right there and was great to see her back on track, Millwood Nike, because she is one of the real excitement machines, I think, in harness racing going forward. And there's so much adore me about her for me, just so much.
She might be
at the
better.
moment she's... Yeah, at the moment, I'm starting to question whether she might be better. Obviously, a massive transition to come from age group racing to taking on the older horses, but everything about her suggests it's not going to be a problem. So, great run from her. Good runs in behind. Sweet Coco did a lot of work to find the front, and Carter kept them pretty honest. Advanced Party was good for Nathan Williamson, of course, taking over the training of her. Forever Me, I thought, ran a nice race considering where she was on the fence. Probably the disappointment was we didn't get to see Sweet Diamond unleash. She got herself into a bit of a tight spot at the quarter and things got a bit tight and she squeezed up and had a bit of a gallop. But I reckon she might have run second, Sweet Diamond, had she stayed down and got clear air. So just roll a line through that one with her and keep her for another day.
Johnny Cox unfortunately got 3 days for that one. The other interesting one that I did take out at Treacherous Gal's a very, very nice filly. She won the Southern Oaks last year and I was there to see a high-speed horse. Both Regan's horses I saw in the Stewards report were both in season, so probably make of that what you will. And I noticed that Craig didn't knock her around up the straight, whether he might not have been able to. Fillies in season can be a little bit of an issue, but might be a bit of a forgive run there for that filly. There is some talk she's coming to Australia. I'm not sure if that's still on the cards now or not, but she's a lovely filly. There's some really nice fillies in there, but unfortunately for those connections, they've come across a year where there is just an absolute jet. It's the only way you can describe that filly. Sorry, going from there. That's a bit of a wrap from Addington. We could have nearly shown every race. In all seriousness, like I think the racing there was just outstanding, and when we highlight Friday night's meeting, it's as I said, it was terrific race. And we'll move to Auckland. One race I'm going to show for a start is Jasanova. Dr. Luck Chin, I love this bit here. They get home in 31.3, and I think they ran 59 something there. So I don't know what he's ran down the back. I was trying to work it out last night. I think it's 27.9. I think I worked it out to be on middle of the road class trotter. This set the tone for the whole night. I think this was race number 3, and this is how everyone ended up driving for the night. It's brilliant to watch. A lot of Australians won't know him, but he's a character of the industry, isn't he?
He is. We used to have a similar driver trainer down here in Mid-Canterbury called Doug McCormick, who Derek Jones, the late great Derek Jones, once described as if he wasn't in front, he was heading there. And Dr. Luck's a little bit like that as well. He likes to get his horses up on the speed, run even quarters, and just try and break their hearts. And his career in harness racing is just remarkable. He's owned, bred, trained, and driven over 100, and I think it might be nearly 150 winners now, off the top of my head. Beautiful breed of trotters. Generally, they just get out and trot. They've got, that fearless style of racing, and it's always interesting when you sit down to try and do form for a trotting race in the North Island, and Dr. Luck's got one in there because you'd never quite know whether you're going to be served up for 800 metres because he wants to get to the front or, what's going to happen. So you can generally back his horses because you know where they're going to go. They're going straight to the top. And, that's another one. Jasanova, of course, she found the front and just rolled them along and broke their hearts off the bat and did enough. So always enjoy seeing him win races because he's such a nice fella to boot and just loves harness racing.
Yeah, Emily tells me he's 73, 74. She's not 100% sure. And he gets out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning to go off and be an anaesthetist. He's got plenty on his plate, and he just loves the industry. He doesn't love interviews. I know that. He's a bit secretive and a bit quiet about that, but that's fine. Love seeing great horses back at the track. Whether he would have won or not, with all cashed up outside of him, but great to see Bolt for Brilliance back at the track, and then quite a comprehensive win after all cashed up galloping, mate.
Yeah, it was. I said the same thing. It would have been interesting if All Cashed Up had stayed down, because I wouldn't say he was going better than Bolt for Brilliance, but he was probably going as good as him. So, look, once it galloped, it was a one horse affair, wasn't it? And
Yep.
so it should have been. But a nod to the training prowess of Tony Hurley. He was a ready racehorse when he stepped out, and I wouldn't expect anything less from one of the best in the game. He'll come through that run and improve. He heads to Addington this week, where he takes on Muscle Mountain. We'll obviously talk about that a little bit later on, but just nice to see him back, because he's been such a great open class trotter for 3-4 years now, and he adds another section to this open class trotting scene that we've got here. And he won a Row Cup, so there's no doubt about him heading towards a Dominion handicap over 2 miles. And if he's anywhere near his best, it's going to be great to see, because he is a serious racehorse.
And he's a rock star to look at. You could just look at him all day as well. He's a beautiful horse in that sense. Old Town Road returned. Interested on your thoughts on this race. We've got plenty of time to digest this race, because you can see Nicholas Cage basically running up the back of Old Town Road there, and then poor old Matty White. He was an absolute passenger here. He got a bit cranky, Nicholas Cage, and he just said, I want to find the top. He needs to improve those manners for a start, Nicholas Cage. Zach was going to follow him up, and I think then Zach thought, oh no, you're going to keep going to the top. So he just sat back. Firstly, your thoughts on Nicholas Cage and where he's at?
Yeah, he does have a bit to learn. He's his own worst enemy. Andrew and Lynn will sort him out over time, but he's still relatively, new, and maybe a year racing in, those good races and taking on some of the best is going to be his friend, and he's going to learn and develop, because you're right, you could see it there. He was almost uncontrollable there at one point, but Matty did a good job, obviously, and we know how good he is, and that's probably the thing that'll probably frustrate Andrew and Lynn the most. They know how good he is too, and if they can get those manners and his racing style sorted, they're going to have a lot of fun with him. And he just wants to run. He'd be the perfect horse from an angle where he could line up in a mobile every week and blast across and find the front and win more often than not. But yeah, bit of work to do there. Good drive from Zach not to knock around Old Town Road first up, but he was just a class above them here, and winning from that far back at Alexandra Park on the home bend is not easy. Like, he's still a wee way off them here, but he cruises past them with a bit of ease, and I think he's really, really developed this horse, and I'm looking forward to seeing him down in Canterbury as we build towards the Cup, because he's a serious, serious player in this year's New Zealand Trotting Cup.
Simply Sam was good. I mean, copy that, obviously scratched out of the race, but Ray would have been wrapped in Simply Sam. Interesting. So my take on this race, Matt, and I'm definitely not knocking any of the horses in it, but Nicholas Cage missed away, did so many things wrong, only got beat 7.8 metres. He was entitled to drop out and be beat 30, and no one would have asked a question with a lot of the horses in between. Where is Old Town Road at the minute? Like, should a horse that's going to be spoken about as, in the first couple of favourites for a New Zealand Trotting Cup, does he need to improve a fair bit? Like, was that just a nice pipe opener for yours? Or, because for mine, the uninitiated, I would have said he's got a long way to go yet to be into those sort of races.
It was always going to be a transgressional year for him last season, where he had to, learn to be a man as a racehorse as opposed to just being a boy. And you take a little bit of stock out of the fact that, for the 2 weeks previous to this, the Simply Sams, the Fernley Cashes, etc., Hooray Henry, were beating copy that. So Old Town Road is potentially on a pretty good line, and John Dickey's a master. He will have him 110% primed come the second Tuesday of November. I don't know what his path is, but I presume he'll probably head to the Ashburton Flying Stakes later this month. That's the path they followed last year, and he went a cracking race. Speed-wise, he is very, very quick, and he's got one of the best tactical drivers in the country for mine, and Zachary sitting behind him. And if Zach can plot a path and get him into a striking distance turning for home in the Cup, he's going to be coming home probably quicker than most in the field. I've got no doubt that with the right run, he's good enough to win a New Zealand Trotting Cup, and I think he's on the right path to being primed and ready for that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's a good way of taking it. As I said, I probably further emphasis how nice a horse Nicholas Cage is if they can get him right and just work it out. I think they'll be hoping for mobile races because I think they're about sick of stands, that's for sure. He doesn't want to play the game at all. He's been well supported too in most of his runs, so there's obviously some stable confidence there going forward. This is Over the Ditch. One thing I want to do is also highlight some of the horses in Australia, and there's 4. Firstly, Queen Elita. We'll talk about the trotters. Mufasa Metro, another Kiwi horse here as well, but gee, she's good, Matty.
Oh, incredible. And it doesn't really probably get talked about a lot, but, Tony Barron, of course, owns in her a master stroke from him.
Yep.
To send her over, because who knows where she would end up if she'd stayed in New Zealand. She might have just been running around as another run-of-the-mill mare trotter. There's not a lot of opportunities for them here. But, she gets to go around each week, and they've done a beautiful job managing her career. And, I mean, this is only the start of it, because at one point she's going to end up going to stud, and she's going to be a broodmare, and anything out of her is going to become one of the most hottest commodities in harness racing when it goes through the yearling sales ring. So she just wins. She just gets out and does a great job every week, and maybe a trip to Europe is high on the cards for them, and it would be great to see her go over there.
I heard a sneaky one. It got dropped one day in an interview that I did. I've asked the person to elaborate, and they won't. But it was dropped that Europe is definitely on the cards for her. So which would be super exciting for harness racing, and the talk that Just Believe's going back. I think that's just great for the Southern Hemisphere trotters as such going forward. We're going to highlight a couple of 2-year-old trotters going around at Addington in a minute. A couple of very, very nice fillies. High Step, been a masterstroke sending this mare to Australia. She's been unbeaten. Nathan's doing an awesome job. Greg Sugar's in the sulky. I don't think she beat a lot here on this occasion, but man, she's going to be a horse that when she gets back over to New Zealand, Oaks and those things next year, a lot of people are going to be looking at her.
Yeah, they are. She's just a continuation of this Brecon breed of young trotters at the moment. You go back through Highgate and the like as well, and she's certainly got all the family ability there with her. And I just keep looking at this Mark and Nathan Pert and Greg Sugar's combination and going, this is pretty exciting. If it's something that we're going to see more and more of in the future, especially as Mark sort of takes a step back and focuses more on his thoroughbreds, he's going to be less keen on going and travelling to Australia, but going to win a lot of races, High Step, and you're right, going to come back over here and probably win a lot more races too. So exciting to see, and you're probably right, probably wasn't the strongest field, but she will have to be good when she comes back, because as we've said, that's a good crop this year. Yeah,
definitely. The Redwood would be her main aim, which is on the same weekend as Kaikoura. So the last weekend in October will be, I would imagine that's her main aim. She'll be a lock to get in. And she's going to be pretty hard to beat. I think her mum won the Redwood. Might be wrong there, but
yes, Highgate.
She did win it, didn't she? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trained by Regan Todd, driven by Mark Purden.
Right. Look at you go. I'm not going to doubt you either, because you got that one worked out. We'll stay
I'm
with
not
that.
going to doubt myself, because I might be wrong too.
I'm
pretty sure that's how it worked out.
We'll put the next video up and we don't have to worry. But this is the real Sherlock. Good training, great training performance, because of course he missed that week. This is a heat of the Woodland Stud Derby, with the final to be run this Saturday night. This was a nice win. You got the very good horse, I can't think of his name just escaped me, in front for Emma Stewart, who probably a little bit disappointing, but the real Sherlock, he just puts him away. I just love the way Greg sits down on him once he gets alongside Perfect Class here. Storm Inside was that other horse, but very, very emphatic win.
This is the Sherlock, as I will refer to him, because that's how I know him, that I've expected to see for a very long time. I thought this time last year he was one of the better horses of the age group in the country, and he never really quite showed it. But that's a bit more like it, and that's a really ominous sign going ahead to what lies ahead, because if he's full of confidence, and I think I've read a couple of things this week, it's all about not using him early is the big key to getting the best out of him. And he actually did do that quite easy. I know he didn't win by a big margin, but Greg, to borrow a galloping term, was hands and heels to the line, really, wasn't he? He just let him find it, and it just adds another little spoke to this exciting racing that we've got coming up over the weekend and going ahead.
The two Derby heats, there was a marked difference in the quality in both of them. that heat, the quality was outstanding. The Storm Inside, I mean, he was in the talks for the Eureka. As a 3-year-old, he's a Queensland Derby winner himself. Perfect class, is a beautifully bred horse. They've got a huge opinion of him. He done plenty of work early. Yeah, I don't know where he's drawn. The barrier draws were done, but I haven't been able to see them since. But he's going to be a serious horse and doing some great things. One other one I just wanted to highlight was Braveview Kelly. Jack Trainer, Kiwi himself. She's actually third last year. He's about to pull out 4 and 5 deep. One, just a brilliant mare, isn't she? This mare, and she probably doesn't get spoken about as she should. I think the job that she's been able to do since she's coming across here, it's just outstanding.
It is, and you're right. She probably wasn't. How would I put it? She wasn't a classy pacer over here when she was with Mark Jones, but of course they had the blueprint for sending fillies and mares over with Stylish Memphis and the co and to Jack, and it worked, and they sent her over as well, and she's just grown a leg over there and done a fantastic job. That high speed that she's got, as you say, she was near last there at the top of the straight, but she's breezed on by them, and good signs for her going forward, because she's generally been a horse that's held her form pretty well over her career, especially once she's got to Australia. So might be some exciting things ahead for her.
I noticed in the call, I haven't been able to follow it up, but BK Swai, that's why I was cheating just then, if you're wondering. I was trying to get it up because I forgot her name as well. But her swan song, so I presume she's going to the breeding barn, but not 100% sure. But yeah, it's a little bit of a formula. I think he ran 1, 2, and 4 with Arden's Delight running fourth. Jack Trainer and these New Zealand mares, it just seems to work, and he'll get a good run with those horses, and she's just a mare to follow, and I think she's a very, very exciting horse for the industry as well. And another horse, we need to highlight these horses because I think it's important that we can showcase them, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you talk about those Kiwi horses that Jack's got. It's a good thing for him too, because there's trainers sitting here in New Zealand at the moment that have got a mare that, are probably looking and going, Christ, do I keep paying training bills, training fees? Do I keep a horse and work over here to chase some mares races next year, knowing that there's a horse called Millwood Nike going to graduate into the 4-year-old and older mares category next year? Or do I send him over to a guy like Jack, and he's got a proven track record with Kiwi mares? I remember BK Swai being here. I think it was trained by Brent White at the point,
yep.
At one point. So and you've seen that. Sending horses over there, there's good opportunities. Not that we're promoting that, but everything's got a shelf life in one point or another. So long may it continue, and I think there will be more and more horses that are sent over there. Yeah,
the one thing I try to, I suppose, being able to fly across and fly back, and it's not cheap or anything else like that, but even the horses, we need to break down to make harness racing better. We need to support both islands. There's not a worry there in the world. So potentially send some across to Jack when the good mares races are on through the summer months. Bring them home, race them in New Zealand. There's nothing wrong with that either. I think going both ways and building the tote pools on both, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Did see just on that, Captain Ravishing has paid the late nomination fee. I see Greg O'Connor released this morning on Twitter that he's paid the late nomination fee. I know that doesn't mean he's coming to the Trotting Cup, but bit of excitement anyway, a bit of an unknown horse in your free-for-all ranks.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course it was talked about once the nominations were officially released for the Cup. I think it was in the day after that there was an expression that they might be keen to come. I presume he'd have to qualify from a standing start before he could come over, or before you would even think about coming over. But he would just add another aspect, and that's starting to build up. We've got Spirit of St. Louis in this week. Swayze's going around in a lower grade race on Saturday night. Their intentions at this stage are still to be in New Zealand in early November, and just adds another string to the bow of this New Zealand Trotting Cup, which is starting to build up to be quite an exciting one, even despite the fact that we've lost Copy That, who was a 2-time winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just actually looking him up now, just to see. I can see if he has been qualified over here. No, so he hasn't. He has not qualified yet from the stand, so he would have to do that. He's obviously got the Victoria Cup this week. But yeah, he hasn't qualified yet from the stand. So yeah, there's a little bit to go under the bridge, and it ain't always that easy, especially a horse like him. I might be wrong, but he seems a little bit hot from what I've seen of him. So yeah, could be an interesting little dynamic to add to a race that doesn't need any more promotion. It's actually just a great race on the calendar, full stop.
Yeah, we want these horses that have got, followings and things like that, and he's obviously got a big one over in Australia. We saw that in the lead up to races like the Eureka and things like that. So the more horses we can get like him coming over, and the more horses like, we can get a Cooter over to Australia and things like that, it's just better for the industry as a whole across both countries, and gives you something to hang your hat on, and gives people something to get excited about too. So yeah, hopefully those plans can play out, and we can see, those three horses particularly coming over to compete in the Cup.
I can. So I'm just looking at the Woodland Stud Victoria Derby. Barrier draws have played a significant part into that race. Captain Hammerhead, he can draw barrier 1 when he needs to. Don't worry about that. He's very good. But the rest of them, the real Sherlock has drawn outside the front. Louis Luai, a lovely horse, has drawn 6. But then the rest of them, Perfect Class, the Lost Storm, Petrarca, Captain's Knock, all off the second line. So that's going to be an interesting race. You then go to the Victoria Cup. Leap to Fame's drawn 5. Better Eclipse. The horse, he won the Kilmore Cup by being the perfect draw. He's got it again going forward. And then you have horses like Hi, My Name is Jeff, and then Captain Ravishing as well. Act Now, Born Leader in Cypher, the Eureka winner, and Spirit of St. Louis, all outside that second line as well. Amor Vita, another of the Kiwi horses, has drawn very wide in 7 as well. So barrier draws have played a fair part into what's going to be an interesting night of racing at at Melton this Saturday night, that's for sure.
Yeah, looking at that Victoria Cup draw earlier on today, and of course you got Rock and Roll Do there drawn up at 4, which will probably end up being 3. So, with Leap to Fame and Catch a Wave and all that drawn outside him, it could be interesting early. Better Eclipse. Well, I looked at that race, and once I saw the barrier draw, and I went, well, I know what I'm backing to run top 3, and it's probably going to be Better Eclipse, who's going to ride the markers the whole way, and the Candyman's going to find a gap somewhere around the last bend, and it's going to run into second or third, or maybe even win it. So, great race.
Yep.
There's been a bit of talk floating around that's been interesting to watch on social media around Hi, My Name's Jeff, and the tactics they're going to approach and how good these other horses are going to be. So great time of the year. I just love seeing these good horses go around, and it's always nice when you get connections of horses that are quite keen to not hold back and throw a wee verbal barb out there and add a bit of spice to races. So long may that continue. I might have to try and get Mark Purdon talking a bit of smack about a few other horses leading into the Cup.
That won't happen. Honolulu Bay is a born leader. He's drawn 2 with Hi, My Name is Jeff, who has said that he will park Leap to Fame, who's going to come out of 4. Oh, it's on. And then you got Rock and Roll Do, and Mick Stanley. He's not scared of any stable, so he won't be worried. Yeah, Spirit of St. Louis, he might sit back and smoke the cherry and book his trip to New Zealand.
Well, in Cypher, the last performance, just sit back and just work over the top of them late. Unfortunately, I'll be in bed because I've got a rugby quarter-final to get up and watch early on Sunday morning. So 10 past 11 might be just a little bit too late for me on a Saturday night. It's
sad getting old, matey. Righto. That's a bit of a wrap of the week that was, and we're going to continue to do that, and that's one thing we will be doing. We actually have recorded this a little bit later tonight on purpose because of basically what is an absolutely cracking meeting. I'm just trying to, might not be able to do this now. I had the fields to come up for me. I'm just hoping I've got them up over the top of you there, Matty. Yep, now we're right. We'll go back to what is a ripping night of racing. Race 1. For starters, this is a great race. You got a horse like Artie's Express who's been talking about going into the New Zealand Cup. They're leading the card off. They haven't even made some of the main races for the night. It's a great way to start a race meeting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. And it's good to see a nice mares race. For so long, we didn't really get them over here in New Zealand, and the higher class mares were struggling and having to go around in races that weren't really suited to them. I think this is a fair indication that we won't see Artie's Express in the New Zealand Trotting Cup. I think she will now target races like the New Zealand, the Junior Free for All on Cup Day, and then there's a mares race on the Friday if they want to. She's class. She'll win that. I've got no doubt about that.
Yep, very good. All right, well, there's a good way to start the night. NZB Standardbred Harness Millions for the 2-year-old trotters. This is one of the races we were talking about just there before with High Step. 2 lovely fillies in this, Paramount Kiwi and Princess Sadie, both unbeaten. One's only had the 1 start, but the other had a couple. Muscle Dash for Tommy Baggery, stable in form, having its first start. And then you've got horses like Look to the Stars in it. This is an intriguing race.
Yeah, it is, and it's one that I probably want to watch before I start making some assumptions on what the pecking order is in these trotters. Of course, Paramount Kiwi comes down from the north. We haven't seen it down here in the south. Bounce and Beyond was spruiked on debut as being a very, very good horse. Obviously got it wrong, so a bit to learn. Levi from the Bob Butt stable is a very talented trotter. Princess Sadie could not have done any more fresh up last week. Of course, the Williamson run just keeps on continuing. So that's going to be a really intriguing race that probably lands in favour of Paramount Kiwi with the draws and just the question marks perhaps around the likes of Bounce and Beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Rightio. We'll continue to go through the Phyllis and Glennis Kennard Bloodstock Mobile Pace. Just a quick thought on this race for the uninitiated, if you like.
There's some nice horses in here too, CR is actually still nominated for the New Zealand Trotting Cup. He'll follow through a nice horse in Lone Wolf. But yeah, Celtic Spirit was a nice horse for the Hopes last campaign. He's been looking pretty sharp at the trials. That one's actually probably one of the most even races of the night that you could almost throw it at the dartboard and see what you come up with. Lone Wolf off the draw, he was so good last week. I'd probably have a play around him.
Lone Wolf, very good. Race 4, I'm going to struggle to get this field. No, I have got it all in there. 17 runners in the Hydroflow Handicap Trot. Nice up-and-coming trotters in this race, that's for sure.
Yeah, there is, including what I think could be one of New Zealand's best 3-year-old trotters and Gold Bullion from the Bob Butt stable. He's a serious horse, and he was so good beating the older horses fresh up. Goes to a stand this week, draws 1 on 10, so that's a little bit tricky. We've got Galway Girl, who I obviously talked about earlier on. Harold Smith's been going really well. Nazareth, of course, a Derby winner last season. So intriguing race, that one. Going to be really interesting. If there's anyone in Australia wanting to have a place bet, number 2, the Bloss. That's the tip. She will trot onto the speed, and she'll follow them, and she'll plot away and probably finish 2nd, 3rd or 4th.
Talking trotters, I do that every Monday night. I do it live, and I get a little bit of help from some people out of the way, from time to time. Out of my way. Last Thursday night, raced at Addington as a trotter. Sunday as a pacer. Back as a trotter this night. It's an amazing little story.
Oh, it is, and Paul Nairn's never been one to shy away from doing something different. Of course, he ran 3rd as a trotter on Thursday night behind Jimmy Carter and went sensational. There was a wee talk around the Methven track on Sunday that Out of My Way's plans are to try and win the Westport Cup on Boxing Day, which is a pacing race. That is the plan for him. So he could probably win the Westport Pacing Cup on Boxing Day and then line up in the feature trot because they race again 2 days later. So nothing would surprise me with Paul Nairn, but you know you've got to throw him into everything because it'll be ready.
No, his horses are going terrific actually too. So there's some even more insight. It's quite a unique story. It can't happen here in Australia because they have to qualify. So even if he qualifies once, you have to re-qualify. If you change gate, you got to re-qualify. So obviously something a bit different for you guys. So yeah, it's very novel here for the Australians, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's not something we see an awful lot of now. We see a lot of horses that, will finish up as paces and go to trotting. One at the moment, Take After Me, who I think's about 300 odd starts. Feels like it's been racing since I was a kid. He obviously won a lot of races as a pacer, and now he ran 3rd at Methven on Sunday as a trotter. He switches back to a pace every now and then as well, but it's not something you see very often, that's for sure.
No, it's a very, very unique one. Right, one of the features for the night is going to be the NZB Standardbred Harness Millions for the 2-year-old colts and geldings. We spoke there before about Victoria. The barrier draws, haven't they made a bit of a difference to this race? Some really, really classy horses going around. A couple we've highlighted already tonight, but the barrier draws make it very interesting.
They do, and it means that horses like Vesum, Renegade, who we obviously talked about, Chase a Dream, are going to have to be every bit as good, if not better, than what we think they are coming off the second row, because you've got some serious firepower drawn in well. You know, Le Major's won its last 3 up north and looked really good doing it. Cole Chisel's a really nice horse from the Barry Purdon Scott Phelan stable. They're going to make these backmarkers work, and over 1980 at Addington, Michael Guerin says it week in, week out. If you're on the markers, you're halfway towards success. So those 3 at the back end of the program are going to have to work that bit harder and have to do it wide. So going to be a really intriguing race, this, and I'm big eyes on what Hadron Collider comes back like, because I think he's as good as anything in this crop, but he's got a lot to learn still.
That was what I was going to say about there, if they can straighten him up, but he's still probably going to be wide. Hawkeye Pierce is that little bomber too, because I tell you what, finds the line terrific. Logan Hollis has got a nice little horse on the hands here, and gets, looks like he'd be 3, maybe 4 back the fence. It's a good start without doing any work, so he's got a good finish on him. That is for sure. The fast class horses, cup runners, go around. They don't even get the orange type. In the what do we got? The Austin Farrier Supplies race, Self Assured, Akuta, Krug, BD Joe, Mighty Louis, McCadry Aviator, Kango, which is an interesting run, and Mosdale Ben, a horse that we spoke last week about, who's flying. Good field, great field.
Really good field, really good field. Look, I think the big key out of this race is you're going to want to see that natural progression from Akuta and Self Assured after that fresh up run. To me, it's Akuta's New Zealand Trotting Cup to lose now. On what I saw first up, he's come back super. He should improve, but it might not be that easy. BD Joe is such a quick stepper. He might get onto the front end, so Akuta's going to have to work. Self Assured, Krug was so good first up too. Just nice to see them going round again. It just adds to that build up, and you've got Mosdale Ben and of course McAndrew Aviator, who we talked about last week as well, that are the up and coming surprise packets of this year's Cup lead up.
And they're in form. That's the best part about it. Be interesting to see how Kango goes getting back on home soil, hopefully for Arna and the connections. He finds a little bit of form, because he didn't enjoy Australia, that's for sure. There was no worries there. He didn't like that at all. Another of the massive feature races on the card, and I think this is one of the more intriguing races for the night, the NZB Harness Millions for the 2-year-old fillies. Coastal Babe steps out on the South Island for the first time, but she can't do any more than what she's been doing. And again, barrier draws have played a pretty big part in this race.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, the way it's worked out with Madrid, Waterfront and Coastal Babe all drawing a little bit wide. Kiss finally gets a good draw, which Kiss hasn't had for a while. Yep. So that may be a good lead-in for her chances. Then you've got, the likes of Ultimate Racing Girl, who's done nothing wrong this time. And Melody Benner just put a line through her run last week. I expect her to be fighting out the finish this week, Melody Benner. If she can get a nice drag into it at the right time, if Timmy Williams can plot a path, I think she's good enough to be competitive. But Coastal Babe, it's going to be interesting. She's obviously been so good winning those last 2, but she's got the wide draw to contend with, and she's not going to get it easy this week. She's going to have to make her own luck at some point.
Got a great finish though. I like the way she likes the line. She definitely likes a line, which is always really, really cool. Airport Canterbury 3-year-old flying stakes for the 3-year-old colts and geldings, and barrier draws have played a huge part in this race, I think. Anyway, be interesting. Your form better. We spoke there before about a horse like Wagstar draws wide. Coney Island Lou, another horse that's going terrific. Triple G, a nice horse last time in, probably not recapturing that form, gets a good draw. And then you've got the likes of Don't Stop Dreaming, Sinbad, Watermelon Sugar. Good luck for those guys. Out the back, it's a huge field. And, man, it's got so much intrigue, this one. When I looked at that, I was just like, wow, this is a race.
There's going to be some serious winners come out of this race at some point, because you could make a case for every horse in this race. And, of course, we didn't even mention Merlin.
Sorry.
Of course, was touted as being, hey, and it's that easy to do looking at the depth, and he's buried away at 1 the second line. Sensational horse, him and Don't Stop Dreaming, they return that rivalry that we saw earlier this year. Sinbad's done such a good job, but then we've got these up and comers like Wagstar. There's Older Meteor there, who wasn't that far off Merlin and Don't Stop Dreaming. You're right about Triple G. I think he's good enough to be a really good top liner in this age group, but we need to see a little bit more from him. Interesting runner for me, outside of probably Wagstar, just to seeing how they measure up, is Jollymont.
Yep,
so good at Auckland last week, winning. Just very, very impressive. I know they've got a little bit of a rap on him, but gee, what a race. You just my sky this, and you probably have to watch it 15 times because there's going to be horses coming out of that are going to drop into other races over the next month and just win for fun.
What about sooner the better, drawing the pole? I know he's probably got to take a couple of steps up, but it's a good draw. He's in form. He returned from a spell with a nice win.
Yeah, and I think Barry probably would have looked for Merlin's name first on the list and gone, oh, bugger, we've drawn one the second line. And then he would have looked up and said, oh, the sooner the better, draw one. That might not be quite so bad for us. They get a chance to sort of, try and punch out and be as handy as possible, at least early on. There will be pressure early on. There's no doubt about it because all these horses drawn on the front line are going to want to get to the front and want to get as far in front of the likes of Don't Stop Dreaming and Merlin and Co. as they possibly can. So really hard to figure out how this one's going to pan out, but it's going to be nice to just sit down and watch it.
Yeah, totally agree, and it's going to be super exciting. That's at 8:36, so Australian time. That's only 6:36, so it's going to be a great night of racing, full stop, both sides of the ditch. Dancing in the Dark, Duncan McPherson getting behind New Zealand harness racing, which is great with some of his sponsorship as well. The battle of the big boys, Bolt for Brilliance and Muscle Mountain. It's not a two-horse race, but they are definitely the pin-up boys of the trotting ranks in New Zealand and probably Australasia right at the minute. It's going to be great to see these two go to battle.
Oh, it is. You're 100% right. And probably the one thing at the moment that probably tips it maybe towards Bolt for Brilliance is he's a bit better away from that standing start, whereas Muscle Mountain's still trying to find it. And we know Bolt's so good at getting himself away and getting handy. He's going to eat that 20-metre handicap up pretty quickly. Look, if the winner didn't come out of those two, you'd be probably surprised. Not shocked, but you'd be surprised. Resolve, Artie by the Hill, loving the port if he gets a nice trip. We know what he's like off the back of a horse. Oscar Bonavina was so good winning at Mott the other day that maybe he's back somewhere near his best. So, yeah, they're going to have to be good to win it, but I think one of the two of them will.
Lovely Deport's had 2 starts since his spell. His last start at the spell was at Dominion Handicap, a standing starter meet, and I know Muscle Mountain did gallop out of that occasion, but he had that scalp over him, and we don't, it's just brilliant, and I think it's so exciting, and it's going to be a huge night of racing. Those last 2 races, is there anything sneaky in those last 2 races at all, Matty, for anyone?
Just looking through them, I think you could actually back one in race 10 with a little bit of confidence. A horse called Commander Ben from the Brenton White stable. It's got a good draw, race 10, number 3.
Yep.
I think it falls into a pretty winnable race this week, so I'd be prepared to have a pretty good play around that. And then you go down to the last race. Well, Defy Me was so good first up, but I think that Wagstar form, we see it with Point Break and Pandaya, drawn 1 and 2. One of those two should probably be winning based on the way I think the Wagstar form will stack up.
Yeah, absolutely. Super night of racing. Full stop. Great racing over the whole carnival, but I encourage any Australians that are watching this and watch that, tune in because you're going to see some up-and-comers. You're going to see some unlucky. We've got no doubt there'll be an unlucky run. There'll be probably a dozen unlucky runs on the night because such of the depth, and it's just super exciting leading forward to the next 2 months, if you like, of just high-quality New Zealand racing on the radar.
Yeah, well, it's scary to think we go from this meeting this week to Monday week is Ashburton Flying Stakes Day, what they now call Magic Monday.
Yep.
There's about 6 black type races on that day, including the Hambletonian for the 3-year-old trotters. So we get another line there. Get the Flying Stakes, you get the Trotters Flying Sprint, which we'll probably see the likes of Muscle Mountain and Bolt for Brilliance. So we get through that meeting, and then the following Monday, of course, is Kaikoura Cup, the Age Classic. You get the South Bay Trotters Cup. Then the next week there's another Addington meeting, and then bang, we're at Cup Day. So, I fear for my wallet over the next month, Paul. It's going to cop a hiding.
But it doesn't stop at Cup Day because Grand Prix is 2 weeks later.
Yeah. Well, you go Show Day, then Grand Prix Day.
Yeah.
And Show Day, to me, as silly as it sounds, I actually enjoy Show Day from a racing spectacle more than I do Cup Day because I think Cup Day gets caught up in the pretty dresses and the dance party and things like that, whereas I love going to Show Day because it's so much more about just the racing, and the Dominion's one of my favourite races, so I really enjoy Show Day.
No, totally, and then there's some really good races after that. Matty, thank you. I really enjoyed this. Hopefully we can continue it on going forward. I think it's a good deep dive into some of the results, but also some of the races going forward. We'll keep changing it a little bit, but we want to highlight the horses as we go through. So I really appreciate you, giving me a bit of time and great insight, mate. I really enjoy the insight that you're able to give. Hopefully sheds a little bit of light, and this as much for punters, I suppose, as it is for just the average Joe participant that just enjoys their harness racing, mate. So really appreciate you giving me some time, and thank you very much for joining me.
No, thanks very much for having me. And yeah, there's plenty we can talk about over the next month, as we've just said. So looking forward to it.
No, good as gold, Matty. Enjoy it. Good punting over the weekend, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.